Once upon a time, there was a king whose name was Midas. He loved gold so much that he would sit on his throne and count his gold coins just so he could enjoy the feel and sight of the precious yellow metal. There was only one thing King Midas loved more than gold, and that was his daughter, Marigold. On mornings, when Marigold ran in from the garden and greeted him with beautiful flowers, he couldn't have been happier, except if the flowers had been made of gold. So he would say, "Oh, my lovely child, if these flowers were made of gold, then they would be worth the picking." In fact, his wish to collect gold grew every time he saw Marigold because he loved her so much. He believed that the best thing he could do for her would be to one day give her the biggest pile of gold that had ever been gathered. So King Midas spent all his time collecting gold, which he kept in the treasure room in the basement of the castle. The treasure room was very secure, and Midas kept the door locked even when he was in it. The room only had one small window through which a single beam of sunlight could shine, and that King Midas found useful only to illuminate his gold. That's why, when the shadow crossed the light's path, he looked up and was quite surprised to see a stranger standing there. The stranger looked around and said, "King Midas, you are a very wealthy man." "Yes, I've done well, but it's taken me my entire life to collect this gold." "Tell me, King Midas, if I granted you one wish, what would it be?" Midas thought and then replied, "I would wish for the golden touch." "I will grant your wish," answered the stranger. "At sunrise, you will awaken with the power to turn everything you touch into gold." And then the stranger vanished. King Midas had trouble sleeping that night, for he couldn't wait to see if he had received the gift of the golden touch. When the dawn's early morning light had finally filled his room, he leaped out of bed, eager to see if his wish had come true. He walked around his bedroom, touching whatever was in his path. And each time, whatever he touched, his nightstand, bedpost, curtains, chairs, all turned to gold. The stranger had indeed given him the golden touch. He felt such immense joy. Excited by his newfound power and the prospect of incredible wealth, King Midas left his royal chamber, determined to transform as much of the castle as possible into gold. As he descended the great staircase, the steps under his feet transmuted, and the balustrade sparkled yellow under his touch. He stepped out into his magnificent garden, where in earlier days he had planted hundreds of flowers, for before his love of gold, the king had loved flowers dearly. He went from bush to bush, making sure that he touched each and every flower, believing he was transforming them into something even more beautiful than ordinary flowers. King Midas then realized how hungry he was, and that his daughter would soon be joining him for breakfast. He went inside, ready to fill his hungry belly and enjoy his daughter's surprise at the new golden flowers. But instead, when Marigold, who was usually very happy, entered the room, she looked very sad. She showed her father the bouquet she had picked for him that morning and said, "Father, look what has happened to the flowers. They no longer have a scent, and the petals aren't soft and colorful." She began to cry. "But, my little dear," replied the king, "this single golden flower is worth 1,000,000 ordinary flowers, and it will never wilt or wither away." "I don't care about that, father. It's not a real flower," sobbed Marigold. King Midas was ashamed to tell his daughter that he had been the one to transform the flowers. He felt very bad for having caused his daughter such disappointment. Midas was famished and thought that a fine breakfast would help them feel better. "Sit down, my daughter, and enjoy this lovely meal." But just as King Midas tried to take a bite of bread, it turned to gold and hurt his teeth. When the king tried to quench his thirst with some water, the same thing happened to his goblet and the water in it. Seeing that her father looked frustrated, Marigold asked, "Father, what's wrong? You seem so unhappy." But King Midas didn't answer her question, and instead told her daughter to enjoy her breakfast before it got cold. King Midas contemplated his pitiful situation. It seemed that whatever he touched truly turned to gold. How would he ever be able to eat or drink again, or carry out the simplest of acts? He was quite literally the richest man in the world, yet he could no longer enjoy himself. King Midas let out a terrible groan. Meanwhile, poor Marigold was very worried about her father. She could no longer endure it, and so she impulsively leaped out of her chair and ran to him, affectionately wrapping her arms around him. And without realizing it, because he found the gesture so comforting, King Midas hugged his daughter back, saying, "Oh, my precious, precious Marigold." But Marigold didn't answer. King Midas looked down and saw his worst fear has come true. He accidentally turned his sweet Marigold into gold. There she stood, now a golden statue, with the look of worry and love permanently hardened onto her face. Midas now understood that this gift that had been bestowed upon him, this gift that was supposed to solve his troubles and bring him happiness, had taken away everything that was truly important and made him miserable. He used to jokingly tell his daughter that she was worth her weight in gold, but now that she was gold, he realized that nothing was really worth more than his little girl and the love they shared. As he stood over her, regretting his greed and wondering if there was any way he could fix everything, he suddenly noticed there was someone in the room. It was the stranger who had given him the golden touch. "Hello, Midas. Are you pleased with the gift I gave you?" asked the stranger. Midas, who was filled with sorrow, replied, "No, I'm miserable. I have realized that gold isn't everything, and now I've lost everything that I really care for." The stranger said, "I see that you are wiser today than you were yesterday. If you truly desire to rid yourself of the golden touch, I will grant your wish." Midas nodded with all his heart and listened closely. "This is what you must do," said the stranger. "Go to the river in your garden. Jump in and wash the golden touch off your body. Then fill a pitcher and sprinkle the water on everything you wish to transform back to its original state." Midas followed the stranger's instructions. He could feel his heart grow lighter as he took his river bath. When it came time to fill the pitcher, he was relieved to see that it didn't turn to gold as he filled it. He rushed back to the castle to Marigold, and there she was, as still and golden as he had left her. He wasted no time in dousing her with water. Midas was filled with thanks as he watched her become herself again. "Father, what are you doing? You're wetting my frock," she declared, having no memory of what had happened to her. Her father laughed and said, "Don't fret over your clothes, my beloved Marigold. Come with me to the garden, for we have some watering to do." Together, they walked through the entire garden, sprinkling all the flowers with the river water. Magically, the flowers regained their natural qualities, making them all the more beautiful, valuable, and irreplaceable. After their work was done, King Midas and Marigold sat on the throne together, and instead of counting gold coins, they enjoyed the sweet perfume of roses and each other's company. "Oh, Father, I've never been happier than I am right now," exclaimed Marigold. "Nor have I, my darling daughter. I've never been happier or felt richer than I do at this very moment." The end. I hope you liked this video and please subscribe to my channel.